Well, for more on this, I want to bring Peter Donolo. He's the former Director of Communications for former Prime Minister Jean Chrétien. So, Peter, welcome. Thank you for making some time for us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
What do you make of the timing of Prime Minister Mark Carney's announcement on Palestinian statehood? Of course, all of that coming just over a day before this deadline.
I mean, I'm not going to read anything into the timing. I'm not privy to the considerations that were taken. But that said, obviously, the situation in Gaza has deteriorated from bad to worse in recent weeks. It's a total disaster. So clearly the government and other countries, of course, that have had similar positions to ours through the years have moved towards recognition. So it's not surprising in that sense.
Do you think that it would have factored into Prime Minister Carney's decision-making process here, the fact that we maybe were going to hear from President Donald Trump on all of this? Because, of course, earlier this morning he came out.
On everything. Donald Trump feels free to share his tiniest, most inane, most ridiculous conspiracy theory and thought at any moment of the day or night. So I'm surprised we haven't heard about Donald Trump on whether or not Justin Trudeau and Katy Perry are dating. I mean, this is the kind of mind we're dealing with. And so, yeah, we should expect to hear from it. Doesn't mean that, I don't know what it means. I mean, it means that, I think what's interesting, frankly, Hillary, is that if he is bleeding now, squawking that we are acting like an independent country, making our own foreign policy decisions, and that we shouldn't be doing that if we want a free trade agreement, then that is a clear signal, a real message that Canadians should be heeding. This is a guy, as Prime Minister Carney said during the campaign, who wants to break us so he can own us. Well, he's acting like it today. I noticed he hasn't said this about Mexico, which has diplomatic recognition of the Palestinian state, or the European countries, which I just heard his press secretary going on about this historic deal they have with Europe. So no, this is very selective. It's the behavior of a mafia don, which is the way Donald Trump behaves. And Canadians need to be wide awake and facing that. And our Prime Minister, maybe in prompting this reaction unintentionally, perhaps, is doing us all a favor by reminding us just what we're dealing with.
So what would you advise then, Prime Minister Mark Carney and some of the other people around him in terms of maybe other policy positions as well? Like you're saying, trying to sort of break away from following the U.S. on other positions. Is there anything else you would like us to see doing on that front to try to break away?
If we want to remain an independent country, we have to behave like an independent country. And that goes, by the way, across the board. I think, you can agree or disagree with the decision and with people have very strong views on the Middle East, and people can have strong views in this decision. But one thing you can't disagree with is the right of a sovereign government to make its own decisions in terms of foreign policy. And that's what this government has done here. And we have to keep on exercising this right. Sovereign rights are sort of like muscle tissue. If you don't exercise them, if you don't use them, they atrophy. And Donald Trump, what he wants, he says he doesn't want to invade Canada, but he wants to take us over. He said that. And my guess is that he's hopeful that over time we'll just get exhausted of dealing with this insanity across the border and submit ourselves. He's very big on submissive partners. And so there's no way that we should do that. And the government's doing what it was supposed to do, what Mr. Carney was elected to do, which is stand up for Canadian interests and for Canadian sovereignty.
And what happens then if tomorrow, if there is some sort of deal, but that does come with some sort of baseline tariff rate? How do you then come back to Canadians and try to sell that to them?
I'm not going to try and assume what's going on. Listen, I think the tariffs, a certain amount of tariffs are already being discounted by Canadian business and the markets. Of course, the USMCA exempts most of the goods that are exported from Canada to the U.S., exempts them from tariffs, and that's in place for another 2 years. So I'm not going to try and predict what the government's negotiating or not. I think the Prime Minister has been very clear, both through the campaign and during the negotiations, when he said he will only accept a good deal for Canada. Donald Trump, we're dealing with a mafia state, and I know it sounds surreal or almost like fiction, but it is the truth. This is the kind of behavior that we see in tin pot dictators. They prey on their neighbors, they prey on their own populations, and he's trying to shake us down. And the best way for that to happen is for us to roll over. And I'm glad that the government is not doing that.
Do you see, just finally here, Peter, do you see any signs so far that our position trying to perhaps stand our ground, do you think that that is something that will eventually work with Trump? Do you think that's something that he will respond to?
I'll tell you something, it's what Canadians want. I can't get into that fetid mind and imagine what he would respond to. He responds to whatever his feral urge of the moment is. But I know what Canadians respond to, and Canadians want a government and a prime minister who stand up for Canadian interests. And by the way, they don't want opposition parties trying to make political hay out of an issue like this. You can disagree with the position the government's taken on the Middle East, but the government has every right to take that position and has every right to express it on behalf of Canadians.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for today, but thank you. We do appreciate all your thoughts and your perspective on this. Thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Peter Donolo is the former Director of Communications for Prime Minister Jean Chrétien.